I'm going to talk you through Design Quality Indicator, which is a tool which the Construction Industry Council, which represents all of the institutes in the built environment, produced about 20 years ago. And I'm going to talk you through how it works and why we do it. And I suppose the first question we should ask is quality for who? Who defines what quality is? It's quite hotly contested. If you ask a quantity surveyor, they'll think about cost. If you ask a clinician, they'll think about outcomes for patients. If you ask a cleaner, they'll think about ease of keeping it clean. If you ask a householder, is it warm, is it convenient? There's a large number of different definitions for it. And some people view regulations as equaling quality. I've met regulations, therefore it's quality. I'm going to argue that regulations are set as minimum, but actually what happens is that they get treated as a ceiling. I'm also going to argue that when we talk about quality as design teams, we have a habit of having binary conversations. We go off and talk with one stakeholder, then another, then another. So no stakeholder gets to hear another one's views. There's a real danger that the person that shouts the loudest gets heard the most, and it often ends up with the design team being the arbiters between different perspectives. So the design team ends up having to try and determine what quality is for this particular client. And that causes other problems. I'm going to go back. That causes other problems. We end up with a very fragmented delivery chain, and decisions that were taken and the rationales for those decisions aren't always clear. Why was something judged important? What is something made of and why? And you've all been there. We've all lived in houses where we've tried to put up shelves or something else. You don't know what the wall is made of. You have a guess. You put the roll plugs in. And 3 days later, you're woken up in the night to the clatter of books falling off the shelf as it falls out of the wall. Sorting out messy wiring that was done before current regulations. And obviously there are a lot more tragic examples when we look at some of the examples like Grenfell, where clearly the design intent of the original building wasn't understood in some of the work that happened later. And what really frightens me, I suppose, to an extent, is the way that the new digital world, the new digital deliverers are embracing customer feedback. If you look at Amazon, I bought a book the other week. I've been asked in 8 separate emails what I think of that. Rate the supplier, rate the book, rate the author, rate the plot development. And I'm doing a mini English A-level exam just because I bought a book. Where do we do that properly when we're in construction? Where do we do that properly with the products that are produced? So about 18 months ago, I came across DQI before they were looking for a chair, and I was really interested because DQI sets out to involve the users of the building in defining what design quality looks like and then assessing whether or not it's being delivered as the design evolves. And to me, that's quite an important element. This is a nice quote from one of our clients. What it basically says is everyone's on the same journey. We're not pitching one against another. We're not having separate conversations. We get everybody involved. How it works is a series of workshops and basically agreeing the quality priorities across the design and construction and the operational phases of a scheme. We don't expect that the stakeholders will necessarily understand what all the definitions of quality are, so we help. There are a series of questions in there to help people establish what quality might constitute, things they haven't thought of, so we upskill the client. There's an independent facilitator to stop the loudest shouter being the one that's always held. They're the ones that look for a highest common collaborative agreement rather than a lowest common denominator. The stakeholders collectively track the quality of the project at the different stages in the design process. It puts the focus on the building as a product. How does it work and what does it do? Not what is its square footage or how many bedrooms does it have. So what do you get from DQI then? In summary, I think you get a means to assess design quality throughout the project lifecycle. The clients like it because it makes them think more laterally, and it helps them to think in a way that the design team understands, and it helps the design team think in a way that a client understands. You can read this, so I'm not going to read it to you directly. But what it really does is produces a better brief, and then it produces an independent appraisal system for the designers who go through it. And when you talk to some design teams, the quality of the brief they have to work with, frankly, is appalling. And then when they try and work out and the client suddenly says, oh, actually, I want this. This is what I mean by quality. We're way too late. The pricing's been done. And suddenly someone's got to cough up extra money to get something that we should have asked about in the early stages of a project. So in the DQI family, we have 3 major schemes. One is DQI Generic, which can be applied to most sectors. And that was developed in 2002, which most of you will work out was about 17 years ago. So it's not new. DQI for Schools was commissioned by the Department for Environment and launched in 2005. It's been used extensively in building schools for the future, and it's still used now in some education projects. There's a very specific emphasis on that. It's very different to the sort of generic DQI. And then there's a DQI for Health commissioned by the Department for Health and launched in February 2014. It is still one of the mandatory tools for design appraisal of new healthcare facilities. And I'm working on one at the moment with a GP practice, which is really, really interesting, trying to get the GPs not to think about how they do medicine today, but how they do medicine in maybe 20 years' time. Because how we treat patients and what we expect patients to do is going to be very different in that 20-year time horizon. So clients, it's a wide range of clients, as you can see here, and a wide range of projects that have been involved in DQI so far. Over 9,000 participants. And the feedback that we get is that it's good. When people get their final buildings, they feel like they know it. They feel like they know what they're walking into. They've got a sense of ownership. We've also often got a situation where people who are going to be collaborating in the building have been collaborating in the design, so they know each other, they hit the ground running. So it's a nice tool from that respect. Talking you through in a little bit more detail now from the overview, there are 5 stages where we do a DQI workshop. The briefing, which is really important, setting what we think quality should be. The concept design, where we basically interrogate the design. The detailed design, where we make sure that it's still on track, it's doing what we expect it to do. Ready for occupation, when it's been constructed, when we go in and help with the snagging or anything like that. And then in use, what have we learned? Does it do what we expect it to do? And we encourage people to do post-occupancy evaluation a couple of years after the building has come into use. We focus very much on involving a wider group of stakeholders than might be the case. So a nice example from a swimming pool. A receptionist got involved in the design of a swimming pool. Very, very unusual. Right at an early stage. And she asked, why have you put the cafe there? And the answer was, well, we've put the cafe there because it seems to be a decent-sized space for it. And she said, there's no point. When the kids are in the swimming pool, the parents are often overseeing their younger children playing outside on the lawn. Put the cafe where they can see the kids playing outside, and we'll get people to use the cafe. Really simple stuff. Saves a lot of reworking once the building's actually in use, and involves someone who's not usually there. Having the people in there who finance it also helps as well, because it helps unpick the rationale for decisions. So when you get to value engineering, decisions are made for the right reason. It's not necessary, rather than, I don't understand what it's there for, therefore it can't be useful. So it improves the quality of the value engineering process as well. It also involves neighbours quite often, asking people how it feels to live nearby a new, particularly a municipal building. Does it add to the value of the neighbourhood? Does it add to the value of the locality? Does the quality actually help the neighbourhood to evolve? Or have we put, I can't remember the phrase exactly, a massive carbuncle on the backside of a much-loved building, I think was Prince Charles's phrase. And I think this is crucial. We use an independent facilitator. And the reason for that is that they can give basically an agnostic pair of eyes. They're not wedded to a design. They're not wedded to where it's come from. Neither are they supportive of one stakeholder over another. Their job is to make the process work. They are independent. They are impartial. Some of the stakeholders that we've involved, have a look here. This is particularly from the health side. It is really interesting involving a porter who knows how difficult it is to move a patient around and how cold they get in particular locations. It's also interesting involving infection control at a very early stage, because otherwise we have to rework the detailed design later on, which adds cost, adds time and adds risk. So all the time we're trying to de-risk that by putting better quality in. And some of the topics here that we talk about when we're setting up the quality tracker, similar to yours, I think, you'll recognise the headings. They come from I forget his name, Vitruvius, the father of architecture, apparently. So they come from there, but we explore them in quite a lot of depth. And in the briefing, we go through and say of each one, is it important and does it matter? If it's not applicable for this project, fine, cast it out. If it's really important for this project, flag it up as being really important. And if it's desirable, then we flag it as desirable. So we calibrate the tool. We record the consensus as to what the project should achieve, because this is very much, as I said, multiple stakeholder consensus-based. And the briefing record contributes to the project design brief. So it's something that you can carry on throughout the project. It becomes a benchmark at which we can do evaluations later on. The subsequent stages, as you would expect, the participants cover all the design and construction disciplines. We'll see the engineer, we'll see the quantity surveyor, we'll see the architect, we might see a specialist construction manager, we might see someone from offsite if we're using that type of construction. It's pretty agnostic as to the style and method of construction. And we can compare people's views on how the thing is performing. It's not rocket science, we keep it fairly simple. But everybody can see what everybody else thinks, and when there are disparities, we can discuss why and come to a solution, rather than getting to a very detailed stage, or even worse, getting the building finished and discovering it doesn't work for somebody. It aligns quite nicely with the REBA stages, and we're working on making it align with other industry tools. So here are some of the things that currently recommend it. It fits with BREEAM, and there's a link with soft landings, which is something we're going to explore a lot more because of the benefits that soft landing has on the post-occupancy evaluation and the end of a process. I would say very clearly we're still learning. We're 17 years in now. It's been updated several times, but I'm not convinced that it is completely right for where we are as an industry at the moment, and it needs a bit of a shake-up. So we've set up a new steering group to take that forward, and for those of you who weren't there this morning, I'll talk you through who's on that. It's Stephen Hodder, who's the incoming chair of the CIC, formerly chair of REBA, Sue Morgan, who's the new director of architecture and the built environment at the Design Council, Phil Smith, who's an NHS client, Jim Chapman, who is a DQI facilitator, Anne Bentley from the Construction Leadership Council. She's also a quantity surveyor, and she's part of the Procuring Excellent initiative. And myself, as I'm Institute independent, and I'm a member of the EDGE think tank, which helped put this project together 17 years ago. We have a number of questions that you can see up here that we're trying to address. And those are some of the things that we'll be talking about in the consultation that's to come. So watch this space, and if you're interested, these are some of the things that we're going to be doing. There'll be an online consultation. We're going to have regional workshops around the country, and we'll advertise all of those in the press. If you're interested, you can email me directly using the address at the bottom. Follow the CIC Twitter feed as we do this update.